Good morning, DC. Welcome into the Blitz. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you today?
Doing good. Got a lot of basketball conversation to talk about. We expected some things to happen if Avery were to not take care of Norfolk State, and this is the first time we've had a chance to talk about that embarrassing loss, and of course the dominoes have began to fall. So we'll just kind of take a little time and break that down. First of all, looking back at that Norfolk State game, DC, what did you see and what were your thoughts or feelings during that game and immediately following it?
Well, I saw a lackluster performance by a team that didn't want to be there. I thought a lot of players who didn't want to compete, kind of lazy, lackadaisical performance, and then immediately following the game and hearing some of the comments from other players, they saw the same thing before the game started. So I kind of thought it might be the end for Avery Johnson at that point, that game. I thought up into that game, had they won 2 or 3 games in the NIT and maybe made it to New York, it would have been hard to let him go, especially during this season of basketball. I mean, it's not a really good time to be looking for a head coach, and I don't think Greg Byrne relishes that. I think he and Coach Avery would like to turn out a different way, but it just didn't.
Now, DC, when you look at this Avery situation, we're going to see what Burns had to say about this, but do you think if we beat Norfolk State, we're not having the conversation we're about to have in terms of this Avery Johnson being released? Or let's see what Greg Byrne had to say about the Norfolk impact on Avery's dismissal, and then I'll get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, Avery and I had good discussions afterwards. You talk about the totality of the program, and it was a mutual decision by Avery and myself.
Yeah, now Greg is not going to give you a whole lot, so you and I have to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Do you in any way think that was the deciding factor? Do you think this change was coming either way?
No, I think it was a deciding factor in just what he said. If you read between the lines, I know for a fact they met before the game on Saturday. I know for a fact that coming out of that meeting, both Coach Johnson gave his commitment that he wanted to stay. Greg Byrne didn't give any commitment, but said that they wanted the best for the program. I know for a fact no decisions were made until after the game. I think what he just said, it came to a mutual decision. I think after that game, Coach Johnson knew it was going to be hard for him to stay and have any traction at Alabama. He had lost the team. He had lost the fan base. And I think Coach Johnson kind of saw the handwriting on the wall and said, hey, mutually, let's go ahead and get this done. I think he was really wanting to prior to that game, but after seeing the performance and hearing all the media reports and the fan reports of the disgruntled fans, I think he felt like he had lost at that point. And had he won that game and won against Colorado, maybe in the next round, I think it would have been. I think he may still be the coach of Alabama.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me when you think about coaches being fired and stuff like that. To me, that's would Alabama really have been any better off had we beat Norfolk State in Colorado? But he probably would have made it. He probably would have survived as a coach, which is always interesting to me. When you look more at the way you do things at your business, and I do things in my business. If somebody's underperforming, and I look at 30-plus games, winning 2 games in a tournament we didn't want to be in wouldn't make that much of difference. But it does in sports, and I've always been amazed by that thought process.
Not only does it make a difference in sports, though, it makes a difference in this time. Right now is a bad time to be looking for a coach in a basketball. Any college looking for a coach right now has to be a little timid, a little scared about hiring someone that may have, a problem down the road in the next 3 to 4 months should more indictments come down from this investigation with the AAU ball and the shoe companies, and I just think it's just a hard time to be looking for a coach.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those things. How do you even navigate this time? Because Greg Byrne gave us four pillars. Kind of really gave five, but he listed these four things, and then he said what he expects, kind of as I guess the overarching thing of what he expects for them. He said he's looking for a coach that can bring about personal development, compliance, strong academics, college experience, and then he says he wants a relentless recruiter. So there's really five major categories there, and we're going to break those down a little bit. We've talked a little bit. Let's start off a little bit with the compliance. DC, you being an attorney and being able to in your practice or away from here, DC, how does a person go about getting around that? Because I think there's going to be some surprise names pop up. I think there's going to be some big names pop up. So kind of where is Greg Byrne at? How does he go about doing this? What's some of the steps he may take to try to ensure that he doesn't bring in, a cancer to the program?
Well, I think he has got some. He is one man search teams. I think he's actually got some people on a list that he's already thought about. I mean, every AD has that list, so to speak, in their back pocket. And I think over the time he's crossed people off that list. Names have surfaced in these investigations. His only problem now is those people that are remaining on that list. How does he go about vetting them to get to all the information he can get? And a lot of that's reliance on people who know them, people who know their program and how they run their program and that sort of thing. So I think he'll do his due diligence on investigating everybody before he makes a decision. But here's the danger in that, as an attorney or as anyone who's in the legal profession, usually what you hear in the early stages of an investigation like this is what they want you to hear, the names they want you to hear.
Right.
And they're trying to draw out the others that they may have information on but not enough evidence in. And so as people plead guilty, you're going to have other names that have been dropped in order for them to get their lesser sentencing and different things. And so to me, this is we've seen just a scrape the surface of it. There are probably other names that are going to fall in the next 3 to 5 months. And you got one shoe company, and there's other shoe companies out there that's probably being investigated as well, because if one shoe company's doing it with the AAU ball, there's probably others that are doing it. So you got that kind of thing going on. And you got other areas that's probably not even been investigated to a point to issue a warrant. So once these are all completed, you have another set of names. Who's to say that somebody that you got on your list might not be in the next wave of, if there is one, of indictments and that sort of thing. So it's difficult to do that. I think you got to rely on his experience, his network of friends, people that he can trust. That there are some good coaches out there that you can know. They run their program with a transparency that know the NCAA compliance. You never want to say that someone's running afoul of the law, but that's something you got in this climate. That's something you got to look at.
DC, and what's interesting about this whole compliance thing to me is it reminds me so much of steroids in baseball.
Yes.
Baseball knew that steroids was going on, and they were propagating, and they got some scapegoats in the big names, the Bonds, the Clemens, all those guys. But baseball knew steroids was going on, and they were using it because baseball was losing market share. They were losing eyes, and home run derbies became a part of baseball, and it brought eyes back to baseball. But when the shoe fell, somebody had to go down, and I'm just wondering, is this systematic cheating amongst the NCAA that the NCAA knows has been going on and has allowed to go on and has not done anything because they don't want to bring down their big programs? We'll talk about that. We'll get to these other pillars that Greg Byrne mentioned, but think about that for a second. Is it possible that there's some big programs out there right now that's the only reason the shoe hadn't completely failed, because it would destroy basketball, March Madness, and lose millions and millions of dollars. And we'll talk about that more right here on the Blitz with DC Capstone report coming up in the third quarter. Wow. Already halftime right here on the Blitz. All right, speaking with DC Capstone report, we were breaking down the pillars that Greg Byrne listed, and one of them being, of course, compliance being the big issue out there. And I asked James Hardy and James Fletcher kind of how many of the big boys are not involved, and they were like, well, the better question is probably who isn't involved. And that's kind of the scary part of where we are. And so, DC, do you feel that part of the climate out there probably kept Avery on even through the end of the season? Had there been, I mean, because down the stretch, to me, if you're going to pull the trigger on Avery, and I just leave it. Do you think the climate of college basketball actually extended and gave Avery an opportunity to keep his job? And had it been a different climate, Avery probably would have been let go during the season?
No doubt about it. I think that under a different climate where there's no risk that we're facing now with all these investigations, and there may have been something done during the middle of the season, toward the end of the season before we ever got to the NIT. I just feel like that Coach Johnson there was something going on with the team, something somewhere he'd lost the team in the season, and I just feel like that was probably going to be addressed at some point if it was in a better climate. But I just don't think you can do that in this particular climate that we're in. We have to now, and so we've got to navigate it. But it's not something you want to do. It's not something you really want to. You relish the idea of going into, and I believe that if we were in a different climate, there may have been a quicker decision made.
A quick side rabbit trail, real quick. You mentioned losing the team, and does the news about Dazon Ingram transferring, does that really confirm that he lost his team a while ago?
Well, I think he lost. I think he lost his team a while ago because of some other things that I know that happened behind the scenes, which I don't want to go in on the air. But I think the Dazon Ingram, to me, just being honest, that didn't surprise me. I thought he was going to transfer anyway as a grad transfer. It sets up perfect for him to transfer. I don't think Dazon Ingram has been, he hasn't been the man at Alabama as he thought he was going to be because of some other people that's come in. And I really believe that the decision to bring in Kyra Lewis affected Dazon Ingram because I really thought it was going to be his team this year.
Yep.
And when you at the last minute, when you ask a kid to reclassify and come in, it doesn't say so much about the people you have on your team. And I think that starts the ball rolling with that type of attitude down the road. And I think that happened. Nothing against Kyra Lewis. He's a great player. Became the best player on the team. So I just think that happened. I think Dazon Ingram participating in senior night should have gave everybody a clue that he wasn't going to be here next year. I left that night saying, hey, I'm pretty sure he's going to transfer whether Avery stays or whether Avery goes. So, but that is a microcosm. If you look back the entire year, it started long before the year started, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think the Kyra Lewis thing, not only did you were saying, hey, we have confidence in you, Kyra, but you were also communicating to your existing team that you don't have confidence that they're ready to lead, in my opinion, especially and specifically you were saying that to Dazon. Another thing that Greg Byrne talked about that I think is a direct reflection of where the program was PD, personal development. Greg Byrne sending a clear message to Avery in the post interview, but also to the next guy coming.
Yeah, I think to the next guy coming and to the fan base, who all of us have eyes, we can see that the players just didn't develop. Something was missing. In other words, there's something missing in player development. We could all see that. Players that transferred, Braxton Key, great. He has some great skills. Don't think he developed into his fullest didn't take the opportunity to do it here and goes to other schools and develops even greater and does better things. I just think that the other players on the team, as we've seen throughout this year, we had some guys that were really had some big games toward the end of the year, like for Alex Reese. But where was he all year long? Why wasn't he developed as a freshman even greater? And so I think there's some problem with player development. I think he's throwing that we're out there for our fans and for the media and for those who had eyes and saw this team this year. I'm not saying he was throwing shade at Avery Johnson. I'm sure they talked about that in their exit interview. But I think that's one of the things he brought up because that's important. And I don't think we saw that under Avery Johnson.
And the college academic side of things is, of course, correct, but it's also coach speak. So we'll skip over that one. The other one was college experience. Break down what read between the lines on that. Is he just talking about from a head coaching standpoint? Is he letting the NBA guys know that, hey, or former NBA guys, we're not looking for you guys? Or is he throwing out that a guy like a Billy Donovan could still be someone that if he decides to shoot for the moon, a guy that he could go after?
I think he's saying that, hey, this time we want somebody who has college experience, knows how to navigate a college basketball team with all the pressures of recruiting and schoolwork and everything that goes into being a college basketball coach. I think some of that, Avery had not had that kind of experience, and some of that was a big, steep learning curve for him. And then some of it maybe he didn't really get all of it sunken in. So I think he's saying, I don't want someone who has no college experience this time because I don't want that learning curve to be such a large learning curve. I want to start fresh. I want somebody that's a relentless recruiter. When you say that along with college experience, you got to have a college coach that knows how to recruit in order to be a relentless recruiter. So I think that's one of the things he thought Alabama was lacking. So that's what he's going to emphasize in his coaching.
So that's the 5 things, DC, and I'm going to put you on the spot. List them in terms of priority, and then I'm going to ask you a question about it because it's really interesting when you look at who just left and what we're looking for going forward. But bring out those 5 pillars and kind of list them in terms of priority, personal development, compliance, academics, college experience, and recruiting.
Well, I think the integrity part is going to be the number one thing because that's the climate we're in now. He's got to navigate through that. And I think there's going to be some people that we would love to have as coaches he's going to mark off the list simply because of NCAA compliance and problems in their past and possibly investigations. They're just going to be off the list. That'll be his first thing. I think, secondly, he's going to look for a college experienced coach who's a relentless recruiter in that area, that priority. And then someone who can player development, and then someone who can work within the academic world as well. But I think the number one is maintaining the integrity of the program, making sure we can't afford with coming off of an Anthony Grant 4-year cycle, coming off of a Avery Johnson 4-year cycle. Alabama, do you think, Martin, Alabama could afford to make a quote unquote Mike Price decision to bring somebody in here within 6 months to a year, you find out it's under investigation? I don't think that we could survive something like that.
Yeah, and that was part of what I said down the stretch is, man, Alabama has to be careful with this coaching hire because if they bring in the wrong guy that brings in negative eyes to this program coming off of the 10-year stretch we've had with the previous 2 coaches, and then 2 of the 3 coaches before that had their own issues off the court as well. And so it could be a really, really bad situation for Alabama if things are not handled properly with this new coaching hire. When you look at it, I look and go, okay, we got compliance, Avery, a check, academics, Avery, a check, recruiting, check. So the 2 that Avery didn't do was college, didn't have college experience, and I think that caught up with him because he coached a game like a pro game and personal development. Because I think that there's the bones of this program to me, DC, are better than the bones were when Avery took it over. In other words, I believe that there's some players. You still need some piece parts, but I think there's players here that can definitely get us with the right coaching into the 20-plus category and into the tournament in year one versus saying it's a 3-year process to get just to the tournament.
I agree 100%. And I think I don't want to slight Avery Johnson. I think Avery Johnson's a great coach. I think he's a great man. I just don't think he was what Alabama needed at the time. And all you got to do is look at last year to say that. I mean, you give Avery Johnson a team like of all Colin Sextons who don't have to be motivated, who don't have to be developed, who have everything. He can take you to the probably deep in the NCAA tournament, but that's kind of like a professional team where you don't have to develop the players.
Right.
You don't have to. They come in with the skill levels. You just got to get them to work within your system. And I just think he's a great coach at that. And I just don't think it was a good match for Alabama based on that.
Hey, DC, I'm going to go ahead and get Gregory running up against the break, but we're going to shift gears on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and get Gregory in with you. Gregory, you're in with DC. What's your question?
DC, do you think Greg Byrne was prepared for this situation by the statement that he brought out? But number one, he already know our coach was looking for another job anyway. For number one, and number two, do you think Greg Byrne already checked all his boxes? With the statement he had brought out.
I think every coach, every AD has that list of coaches in their back pocket who they'd go to if they need to make a change. And I think he already has some people in mind. He has a great network. Greg Byrne is a great network out there. If your listeners, Martin, know, his dad was a great AD. He has a great network of people out there. He's made some good hires. I think the good hire he made the baseball, Brad Bohannon, I second. I think he's one of the best hires he's made. He's come in and kind of been an outside-the-box hire, but it was somebody that he had in his mind to go after. And I think he has a person like that in mind, Gregory, in basketball as well. We may not know the name as well, but I believe he's going to go after somebody, best coach at Alabama.
I think, cause I really think he really trying to make the program more stronger and more exciting than we ever seen before. About his comment. You know what I'm saying? Well, thank you, DC. Roll time.
Thanks, Gregory. All right, DC, hold on to the other side of the break. We'll be back right here on the Blitz on Tide 102.9 and 100.9.
You have a chance for a scandal.
Back to the press conference. What did Greg Byrne mean by not concerned about geographic footprint?
You mean he wasn't going to look within the Alabama family in the SEC or in this southern area? He feels like he can go out and get anybody to come in here, and because they have the name Alabama behind them, they can do a good job of recruiting.
Does that sound good for Thad Matta?
I think it would be good for Thad Matta. He'd be a good source. I think he'd come from outside and come in. I think Georgia made a run at him. You remember that? He turned Georgia down. I think Alabama can make a run at him as well. I'm not sure what he's looking for right now. If he wants to get back into coaching, it'd be a good place for him to land.
Yeah, and another name that jumps up when you hear that is Chris Beard from Texas Tech. And it also, all of a sudden, it doesn't put Steve Prohm in the lead, in my opinion, on that. What's your thoughts?
No, I agree. I don't think Steve Prohm's in the lead. I think Chris Beard's a good choice. I think behind the scenes, though, Chris Beard may be waiting to see if Shaka Smart's going to make it in Texas. I think Chris Beard likes that area to recruit, and he has a lot of connections there. I think if you're talking about somebody out of the Iowa area, Fred Hoiberg is a better choice, in my opinion.
All right. When you look at the statement, winning a press conference, what is Greg Byrne trying to communicate to us?
Well, two things. I think one thing is he doesn't necessarily looking for that person to come in with a big, boisterous personality, somebody everybody knows about, to make the big splash hire. Second thing, I think it's throwing a little shade toward coaches who have used Alabama as a stepping stone, i.e., Greg Marshall with the Shockers there to get some type of better deal where you are. I think that's throwing a little shade toward them.
All right. Flipping back over to football, Alabama gets a tight end, 6'7", 6'7", big boy out of Briarwood Academy up in Tennessee. Nick Saban not joking about having some depth issues at the tight end position. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it just shows you where we are at this point But, I look at this as maybe like another Josh Jacobs. I'm talking about a diamond in the rough type thing. No one else is out there to get him. This guy had not played football except for 1 year because his best friend encouraged him to come out and play, and did a great job in 1 year. He was an athlete, of course, basketball player. Fell in love with football. No one knows about him because he doesn't have any film, doesn't go to any of those camps. So I think it's a great get for Alabama.
So watch when I saw, I said, watch Saban find another guy that's going to be the next Gronkowski. Hearing anything from the gridiron? Kind of been a quiet spring so far, and
that's a good thing. You had to have me on for any legal issues. I like that so far. But one thing I heard was interesting. Coach Saban doesn't throw out a name unless they're showing you something. I think moving Tre'Davious Townsend from wide receiver to running back was a big move. I thought Tre'Davious Townsend did a great job last year in the spring, but never could break into that rotation because he has such great athletes at wide receiver. He may find a place as that change-up running back.
Thunder and Lightning.
That's right.
I think they're looking at the Thunder and Lightning. You got Keelan Robinson, you got Jerome Ford, and you got Tre'Davious Townsend, and then you have on the other side, you got Trey Sanders, Brian Robinson, and Najee Harris. One quick last question, comments on Terrell Lewis intentionally sitting him out, or has he re-injured himself?
I don't think he's re-injured himself. I think that coming back from a bad injury like that, you get really sore after you start doing some things, and I think that's what he's experiencing, some residual soreness. I think I just want to do a precaution to hold him out.
All right, that's DC Capstone Report. You can find him at DavidCott50, at DavidCott50. Thanks, DC. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Martin. Have a great weekend. Roll Tide.